Professor Vex-Nine clicked his mandibles nervously as he reviewed the morning's schedule. Teaching xenobiology at the Galactic Academy was supposed to be a peaceful job, not this. His 3 eye stalks swiveled toward the reinforced classroom door, where warning lights blinked like a disco from the 7th circle of hell. "Attention students," Vex announced to his class of 37 different species, his voice barely concealing his terror. "Today we have a very special guest lecturer." The Zephyrian twins, Blue and Gru, exchanged worried glances with their 4 arms each. Even the normally fearless Kraxan warrior student, Thok, shifted uncomfortably in his battle-scarred exoskeleton. Everyone had heard the rumors about what was coming. "Now, class," Vex continued, his voice cracking like a teenager asking someone to prom, "I need you all to remember the safety protocols we discussed. No sudden movements. No loud noises. And for the love of the cosmic void, nobody mention their homeworld's military capabilities." A soft knock echoed through the classroom. Every student froze. Thok actually whimpered, which was impressive considering he had single-handedly conquered 3 star systems before enrolling. "Come in," Vex squeaked, his voice reaching octaves that shouldn't exist in nature. The door slid open with a hiss that sounded suspiciously like a death rattle. The classroom's atmospheric processors went into overdrive, struggling to maintain breathable conditions as pure, concentrated terror filled the air, and then, it entered, the legendary apex predator of Terra. The nightmare that haunted the dreams of seasoned space marines. The species that had somehow clawed its way from a backwater planet to become the most feared force in the galaxy. The human child was approximately 4 feet tall. She wore bright pink overalls covered in what appeared to be cartoon animals. Her hair was tied up in pigtails with ribbons that sparkled in the artificial light. She carried a small backpack shaped like a fuzzy creature that Vex couldn't identify but assumed was probably venomous. "Hi everyone," the tiny terror announced, her voice so cheerful it could probably weaponize sunshine. "I'm Emma Martinez, and I'm 8 years old." Silence. Complete, absolute, mind-numbing silence. Even the classroom's ventilation system seemed to hold its breath. Gru, the more talkative of the Zephyrian twins, slowly raised one of his 4 hands. "Professor," he whispered, "why is the apex predator so small?" "Size means nothing," Vex hissed back, his eye stalks darting between Emma and the emergency exit. "Remember, this species conquered half the galaxy before they hit puberty. Their young are the most dangerous." Emma actually skipped, to the front of the classroom. Each bounce sent seismic waves of panic through the assembled students. Thok had gone completely pale, which was concerning since his species' blood was naturally purple. "My daddy said I should tell you about Earth," Emma announced, pulling out a tablet that was probably disguised as some kind of neural disruptor. "We have lots of fun animals at home." She tapped the screen, and holographic images began projecting above the device. The first image showed a massive, gray creature with tusks the size of tree trunks. "This is an elephant," Emma said with disturbing enthusiasm. "They're really smart and can remember things for forever. Daddy says humans used to ride them into battle, but now we just think they're cute." Blue fainted. Just completely shut down and collapsed onto his desk with a thud that echoed through the classroom like a gong of doom. "Oh no!" Emma gasped, her eyes widening with what the students assumed was bloodlust but was actually concern. "Is your friend okay? Should I get the nurse?" "No, no!" Vex practically shrieked, positioning himself between Emma and the unconscious student. "He's just resting. Please, continue with your presentation." Emma nodded seriously, the gesture somehow more terrifying than any battle cry. She swiped to the next image, a black and white striped creature with abnormally large teeth. "This is a zebra. They're like horses, but with stripes. Humans tried to domesticate them, but they're too mean. So we just made friends with regular horses instead." The casual way she mentioned domesticating an entire species sent fresh waves of horror through the classroom. Thok was now hyperventilating into a paper bag he'd somehow produced from his utility belt. "And this," Emma said, swiping again, "is my favorite. A dolphin." The hologram showed a sleek, gray creature leaping through water with apparent joy. Dolphins are super smart. They can recognize themselves in mirrors and they have names for each other and they use tools and they. Emma paused, tilting her head with the innocent curiosity that had toppled empires. "Why does everyone look so scared?" Professor Vex realized that his students were exhibiting every possible fear response simultaneously. Some were frozen in terror, others were quietly weeping, and at least 3 different species were trying to blend into the furniture. "We're not scared," Vex lied with all the conviction of someone trying to convince themselves that the check really was in the mail. "We're just very interested in your planet's biodiversity." Emma beamed, a smile so bright it could probably be seen from orbit. "Really? That's great. Wait until you hear about the sharks." The temperature in the room dropped approximately 15 degrees as every circulatory system in the building simultaneously decided that blood was overrated. This was going to be a very long class period. Emma's eyes lit up like twin suns going supernova as she swiped to the next holographic image. The classroom's emergency lighting system began blinking faster, as if the building itself was having a panic attack. Sharks are so cool. Emma squealed, bouncing on her toes with the kind of enthusiasm usually reserved for conquering solar systems. They have like a million teeth, and when they lose one, a new one grows back. Isn't that awesome? The hologram displayed a massive gray creature with rows upon rows of serrated death dealers lining its jaw. Several students made sounds that could charitably be described as whimpering, but more accurately resembled the dying gasps of small machinery. Thok, the supposedly fearless Kraxan warrior, had somehow managed to climb onto his desk and was now attempting to hide behind a textbook titled Advanced Stellar Cartography. The irony that a being who had personally wrestled black holes was cowering behind a book about mapping stars was completely lost on everyone present. But here's the really fun part. Emma continued, completely oblivious to the fact that half the class was contemplating their life choices. Humans swim with them. For fun. Professor Vex' third eye stalk actually detached from his head and fell onto his desk with a wet plop. He stared at it for a moment, then decided that having only 2 eye stalks was probably the least of his problems right now. Swim with them, whispered Zara, a normally composed Felixian exchange student whose fur had turned completely white in the span of 30 seconds. Voluntarily? Oh yes. Emma nodded enthusiastically, completely missing the horror in Zara's voice. My Uncle Jake is a marine biologist. He gets in the water with great whites all the time. He says they're just big puppies. The silence that followed this revelation was so complete that you could have heard a photon drop. Even the classroom's life support system seemed to pause in shock. Gru, who had finally regained consciousness, slowly raised a trembling hand. What, he asked in a voice barely above a whisper, is a puppy? Emma's face brightened so much that the classroom's automatic dimming protocols activated to prevent retinal damage. Oh. Puppies are the best. They're baby dogs. She swiped again, and the hologram displayed what appeared to be a small, furry creature with large eyes and a lolling tongue. It looked harmless enough, until Emma started talking. Dogs used to be wolves, she announced cheerfully. But humans made friends with them like thousands and thousands of years ago. Now they live in our houses and sleep in our beds and help us hunt and guard our stuff and play fetch and, wait, Thok interrupted from his hiding spot behind the textbook, his voice cracking like old parchment. You domesticated wolves? The pack hunters? The apex predators of your planet's ecosystem? Well, yeah. Emma giggled, a sound that somehow managed to be both adorable and absolutely terrifying. Daddy says humans are really good at making friends. We made friends with horses so we could ride them, and cows so they give us milk, and chickens so they give us eggs, and Professor Vex realized that his species' understanding of human civilization had been fundamentally flawed. They hadn't conquered other worlds through superior technology or military might. They had simply convinced everything to be their friend. But wait. Emma said, practically vibrating with excitement. I haven't told you about the really cool stuff yet. The phrase really cool stuff hit the classroom like a neutron bomb of pure terror. Blue had started quietly reciting what sounded like prayers in his native tongue, while Zara had begun grooming herself obsessively, which was apparently how her species dealt with existential dread. Emma swiped to an image that made everyone's blood freeze in their veins. It showed humans, actual humans, suspended thousands of feet in the air by nothing more than thin fabric and rope. This is skydiving, Emma announced with the casual tone of someone discussing the weather. Humans jump out of perfectly good flying machines for fun. My big sister Maya went skydiving for her 16th birthday. Your species, Vex croaked, his voice barely functional, throws its offspring out of aircraft as entertainment? Not just offspring. Emma corrected helpfully. Grown-ups do it too. And bungee jumping, and rock climbing, and deep-sea diving, and cave exploring. With each activity she listed, another student's sanity cracked just a little bit more. The classroom was beginning to resemble a psychiatric ward having a particularly bad day. Oh! Emma suddenly exclaimed, clapping her hands together. I almost forgot the best part. Humans go to space for fun too. My teacher says that some humans even live on space stations permanently. They float around in zero gravity and eat freeze-dried ice cream. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place for Professor Vex. Humans didn't just survive in hostile environments. They actively sought them out. They turned mortal danger into recreational activities. They had literally looked at the infinite void of space and thought, you know what? Let's live there. Questions? Emma asked brightly, looking around at the shell-shocked faces of her audience. Silence. Then, slowly, Thok raised a trembling hand from behind his textbook fortress. Yes? Emma smiled encouragingly. Are you, Thok whispered, going to conquer us now? Emma blinked in confusion. Conquer you? Why would I want to do that? Because, Vex said weakly, that's what your species does. You're apex predators. You dominate ecosystems. Emma tilted her head, considering this with the serious expression of someone pondering the mysteries of the universe. Oh. I think I understand the confusion. She walked over to Professor Vex' desk and, in a move that sent every security protocol into overdrive, gently patted his head with her small hand. Humans don't want to conquer anyone, she said softly. We just want to be friends. That's what makes us different. We don't hunt because we have to anymore. We explore because we want to. We make friends with scary things because we think they're interesting. She looked around the classroom with those impossibly innocent eyes. Would you like to be friends? And in that moment, 37 of the galaxy's supposedly most dangerous species realized they had just been completely and utterly conquered by the most devastating weapon in the human arsenal, kindness.